It's Rapture Day already. Uh, yeah, supposedly the rapture is supposed to happen today, but I've lived through many of these, more and more since the internet came out, and people can really get on the bandwagon and get hopped up on this. I call it religious psychosis. Now, my name is Jeffrey Luscombe. I'm the author of Shirts and Skins and To Refrain from Embracing. I write novels about what it's like to grow up as a Gen X kid in the 70s and 80s, and also in a religious household, because I myself am from a rather religious household. My father was a born again Christian, and so we grew up sort of gospel evangelical Southern Baptist. Different parts of the family were different sects of this, but all were pretty much hard nosed evangelicals. Um, so that was what I grew up in. And so this concept of rapture is not foreign to me. It was really a huge basis after probably being born again, um, part of the idea of being, evangelical. Now I'm going to even give you a lowdown of what this means because I know what it means. I think a lot of people are going, "What in the heck is this rapture and all the people flying up in the air?" Well, it comes from a couple of scripture. The first is uh, uh, Thessalonians, I believe, where it's something about Christ is going to rise up. There's a trumpet. There's always a trumpet. And the trumpet's going to blow, and those who are alive will rise up into the clouds and meet the Lord, and and be with Him forever. And people said, "Well, someone thought." I think this all goes back to a couple of evangelicals in the 19th century. And so people thought, oh, hey, well, here, this is a good idea. This is a charming idea. And okay, it's okay. So far, it sounds kind of nice, I guess. If you believe in, I'm an atheist. So I should get that out right now. And like I said, I write about um, these sort of things. I write about religious trauma as well. Um, that this uh, these concepts of evangelicalism can create to other people. Um, so that was the first scripture. There was also another one in it's we will I I will tell you a secret. We will not all sleep, meaning die. A trumpet will blow. I told you there's another trumpet, and and they will be with God forever. So we will not all sleep, but they will be changed. That was the word, changed. And so that was another one. Um, and then a bunch of revelation stuff of what's going to happen after that. So the timeline is that you're just a twinkling of an eye. It says that this change is going to happen. So you're walking around, you're getting your stuff, you're driving a car, you're driving a plane, walking down the street, you're teaching a class, you're at work, and boom, you're gone. And up you fly to be with the Lord, and so people believe that. People. I never believed that. I was a skeptic from the get go. I just didn't buy this stuff. It just was too out there for me. Maybe because my dad became a born again Christian when I was like early uh, childhood. Uh, 7, 8, 9. So I had time. Like I wasn't born into it. We were sort of my family had been evangelical since before I was born. Bits and pieces of them, they all sort of came to it at different times for different reasons, usually for trauma. And so, like my father went to it was because of trauma. So they got into it. So I was aware of these concepts, and I was so from an early age, I just said no, that's not for me. I don't believe any of that. But the interesting thing is what happens, and this is the thing about left behind, the concept of left behind that people are like leaving lists. And I've never seen pamphlets like this. And they were actually like for those left behind. I'm not kidding. Like when I was like 10, 11, 12, for those left behind. Because what happens once the rapture happens, that starts it, man. Like We're the die is cast at that point. And there's a timeline, an absolute timeline at 7 years. And the first 3.5 years of after Rapture is when the rise of the Antichrist, and he's might even be able to explain like where all these people went, because they haven't talked about it enough. So there's the rise of the Antichrist, and there's trials and tribulations, and things get progressively worse. And after 3.5 years, it becomes awful, and it's called the Great Tribulation. It only lasts 3.5 years. Um, so kind of like high school. No, and that's when you have the famines and the wars, and like big hunks of the population are killed and murdered and destroyed by famine and war, uh, and so that's where this left behind stuff comes, because these people go up in the clouds and everything's great, and the rest of the world falls into this horrible, terrible time of pestilence and war and murder, it's going to be terrible, and that's going to be unleashed in the world for 7 years. For these 7 years, 3.5, not so bad, but not great. The last 3.5, horrendous. And then after the end of 7 years is that there's a huge war, that's Armageddon, and and then Jesus comes back, and he throws all Satan and all the bad people who are left into a pit of fire, and that's the end of the story. But not the end of the story, because what actually happens for some bizarre reason is that there's 1,000 years of Jesus reigning on earth, and everyone's quite happy, and then he lets the devil out and has yet another war after 1,000 years, and then that's it. Then it's the end of the world. So, and there was always this weird, almost like excitement about leaving these people behind, and so these non-believers or other faiths, with evangelicals, and you can see it. There's like this weird glee in TikToks, of people saying those left behind and what was going to happen to them, and like it's like, oh, it's going to be awful for them, but it gets their juices going, and I like I said, I know these people. It gets their juices going to think that that these people who have been having this great time, who who don't believe in God, are going to get theirs, and are going to have to do this while I'm up in the clouds. So, this is where this concept of left behind, and they make movies and uh, books about it, about this horrible time about being left behind. So that's the concept of rapture that I grew up with, and oh yeah, and because all the songs, like even all the evangelical songs, are like he's coming back and he's going to grab me and we're flying up, 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 up in the clouds. Ooh, and you don't want to be here afterwards. Dun dun. So that's what the songs are about. That's what gets evangelicals very excited. This concept of rapture and this tribulation, that they'll just be looking down at heaven going, "Ooh, look at nephew Jeff down there, being eaten by locusts or something like that." So they spend their life waiting for this, and I'm not kidding. This is a huge part of the concept of being evangelical, is waiting for this and expecting this, and so that this is just another. And so what happens with social media is that more people get on, they start talking about it, they start believing it, and then I call it um, religious psychosis, which I believe this is. And it's not going to happen today. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen ever, because it's just not going to happen. So, um, yeah, so that is Rapture. This is Rapture Day again. And I will tell you, they will have another one in a few months or next year, and it won't happen again. And they will still, go on believing this stuff. And for those who are, still alive in my family who adapted this, and the younger generation kind of did not. They were really bullies about it, and I think that's where my religious trauma comes from. Is the type of people that they became, and they were like, how it could turn very nice people who had been traumatized into really mean bullies that that I had to endure growing up for whatever reason, whether it was about being gay, or that was a big part of it, or I was a non-believer and I just would not do it. Like I said, we were sort of Southern Baptist gospel, and I would not get baptized. My Catholic husband finds that odd when I say I was never baptized. How can you never be baptized? Isn't everybody baptized? No, I was not baptized because I was a very willful boy, and they were not getting me in that water. There was no way I was ever going to get in that water. Um, so I was never baptized, which shows just how what a willful boy I was. I just said, no, I'm not doing that. I don't believe that. I'm not doing that. So to all those celebrating a happy Rapture Day, I hope I explained it with, maybe some amount of, well, as a skeptic and as an atheist, but with also some, some respect there that this is what they do believe. Um, I do think that there is a meanness in it with the excitement about those being left behind. But a lot of people believe a lot of different things. But a lot of people are saying, "What is this rapture?" Well, that's that's how it works. And my novels, Shirts and Skins and To Refrain from Embracing, often include a hint of that religious trauma um, from people who believe these sorts of things, and evangelicalism, gospel church, and that sort of things. And and yeah, so that is it. If you have any questions, you can leave them on in the comment section. I'll try to answer them as best I can. And if like I said, I'm not. It's as I understood it. So if you are raptured today, please please enjoy. Look down on old Jeff, and I'll be smiling and waving um, at that. And I think that's enough for me for this podcast. Yeah, I said any comments, throw them in. My novels, Shirts and Skins, To Refrain from Embracing, about growing up Gen X, uh, growing up as a gay kid in a tough working class town, growing up around evangelicals, and what that does with religious drama and that sort of thing. But that's it for me. Enjoy. Have a great day, and you'll hear from me when you hear from me. Have a good day.